Good morning, class. Today we are going to continue the chapter from where we stopped. Okay, page number 49. We have to continue with the second paragraph on this page. Before that, let us discuss or revise what we did in the last class. We have seen that a sharecropper, his name is Rajkumar Shukla, has come to meet Gandhi and has finally convinced Gandhi to take him to Champaran for this problem to be solved forever. When Gandhi came, he tried to gather and collect all the information from the people. First, it was Rajkumar Shukla who told everything, whatever he knew. And then after that, to know more, he tried to collect information from Muzaffarpur. Okay. Then he moved further and then he came to know that there are the large big lands in Champaran and they are divided into estates and are owned by Englishmen and worked by, and who are working on them? Indian tenants. The commercial crop which was growing there was indigo, and the landlords are compelling, that is, they are forcing the farmers or the tenants to plant 3/20 or 15% of their holdings with indigo and surrender the entire indigo harvest as rent. See, whatever you are growing, you grow, but 15% of the land has to be indigo, and whatever the indigo is grown on the land, it has to be given as rent. And this was a long-term contract. It means that it was not for 2 or 3 years, but more than 20 years. Okay, now let's continue with the next paragraph. Presently, the landlords learned that Germany had developed synthetic indigo. They thereupon obtained agreements from the sharecroppers to pay them compensation for being released from the 15% arrangement. Now what happened, that the landlords, they got an information that synthetic indigo, a better type of indigo, is grown in Germany. So India, now whatever the indigo produces there in India will not be needed. So now they are trying to do what? They are asking the tenants that instead of growing 15%, which you were growing, you should not do that. Instead of that, you just give some money, pay the compensation. The sharecropping arrangement was irksome to the peasants and many signed willingly. Yes, so irksome means irritating, frustrating. So the arrangement was not, the peasants were not happy, they were frustrated and they were angry with this agreement, but some of them, they just signed willingly. Okay, we are ready to pay the compensation and we have to just get rid of the indigo production. Those who resisted engaged lawyers. Now the people who do not agree with the agreement, they wanted the lawyers to fight for them. The landlords engaged lawyers, the landlord hired thugs, and the landlords, what did they do? They hired thugs, so that by hook or by crook, whatever the landlords want should be done. Meanwhile, the information about synthetic indigo reached the illiterate peasants who had signed and they wanted their money back. Now the people, remember, we have two types of people here in this paragraph. One of them are fighting because they are not happy, and the other group was the people who signed. But now what happened is, the people who signed also understood what is the mentality and what the landlords want, and they want their money back. Now the people, the peasants who gave the money, the compensation who paid, भाई हरजाना जिन्होंने भर दिया था, हम इंडिगो नहीं देना चाहते, but they are giving the money. They wanted their money back because they have understood that the landlords are simply exploiting them. Now this was the time when Gandhiji arrived in Champaran. He began trying to get the facts. First, he visited the secretary of the British Landlords Association. The secretary told him that they could give no information to an outsider. Gandhiji answered that he was no outsider. Now here we can see there is a contrast, that the government is under the control of British. So who are the outsiders? They are the Britishers, not Gandhi. But Britishers, when saw a person coming forward and fighting for the rights of the people who are illiterate. So that was a kind of a threat to them. So they tried to dominate. The British government tried to dominate Gandhi and called him an outsider. But Gandhi said that he was not an outsider. Next, Gandhi called on the British official commissioner of the Tirth division in which the Champaran district lay. The commissioner, Gandhi reports, proceeded to bully me and advised me forthwith to leave Tirhat. As soon as he came to the commissioner tried to again make him, he tried to bully him to, we can say, insult in a very rude manner, harass somebody. So Gandhi was advised to leave the division instantly. Gandhi did not leave. Instead, he proceeded to Motihari, the capital of Champaran. Several lawyers accompanied him at the railway station. A vast multitude greeted Gandhi. He went to a house and, using it as headquarters, continued his investigations. A report came in that a peasant had been maltreated in the nearby village. Gandhi decided to go and see. The next morning, he started out on the back of an elephant. He had not proceeded far when the police superintendent's messenger overtook him and ordered him to return to town. Now we can see here Gandhi is not leaving and the people are supporting Gandhi. They have come to support Gandhi. And a report also came that a peasant was maltreated, means he was beaten badly. Gandhi decided to go and see that peasant. The next morning he started out on the back of an elephant. He had not proceeded far when the police superintendent's messenger overtook him and ordered him to return to the town. And on the back of an elephant, with a strong determination, Gandhiji started that morning and he wanted to go to no more. But as soon as he reached, there was a messenger from police superintendent, and he asked to leave the town as soon as possible. Now, in his Gandhi compiled, the messenger drove Gandhi home, where he served him with an official notice to quit Champaran immediately. As soon as the messenger left Gandhi, where he was supposed to stay, that messenger gave him a letter, official notice. And what was written in the notice? That he should go from here right now. Gandhi signed a receipt for the notice and wrote on it that he would disobey the order. He answered, but what did he answer? He said, I will not obey you, I am going to disobey you, I am not going to leave Champaran. In consequence, Gandhi received a summons to appear in the court next day. So he was called for a trial in the court the next day. All night Gandhi remained awake. Now he knew that some big problems are going to occur and I alone am not going to face them, will not be able to face them. So he remained awake that whole night and he was doing what? He has telegraphed Rajendra Prasad to come from Bihar with influential friends. He sent instructions to the ashram. He wired a full report to the Viceroy. These are the things he is doing. He is writing a letter to Rajendra Prasad so that he comes here with some strong more friends or lawyers, and then he sent instructions to the ashram. He wired a full report to the Viceroy. Then the next morning was filled with peasants in Motihari. Motihari was found black. Black means only the heads were visible, and the hair black in color. So Motihari black with peasants. They did not know Gandhi's record in South Africa. They had merely heard that a Mahatma who wanted to help them was in trouble with the authorities. So the people are not completely aware what Gandhiji is here for, but they only know that he has come to help us and he is in problem. Okay, the spontaneous demonstration in thousands around the courthouse was the beginning of their liberation from the fear of British. Now they are all standing in front of the court and the British government. All the peasants have come here, they have gathered courage. So this shows that this was the first step towards liberation, that they are not having fear of anybody. The officials felt powerless without Gandhi's cooperation. He helped them regulate the crowd. He was polite and friendly. He was giving them concrete proof that their might, hitherto dreaded and unquestioned, could be challenged by Indians. So now the officials are getting tensed, that they are feeling powerless, that Gandhiji is the only person, with his cooperation only we are going to control this crowd and this, we can say, the chaos, the problems. So Gandhiji only helped to regulate the crowd. He was polite and he was very friendly. He was giving them concrete proof that their might, hitherto dreaded and unquestioned, could be challenged by Indians. So here he is trying to show the British officials that, see, we are also having courage, and if you are going to treat us badly, you have to face us. The government was confused, baffled. Confused. Okay. So the government was baffled. The prosecutor requested the judge to postpone the trial. Apparently, the authorities wished to consult their superiors. Gandhi protested against the delay. He read a statement pleading guilty. He was involved, he told the court, in the conflict of duties. On one hand, not to set a bad example as a lawbreaker, and on the other, to render the humanitarian and national service. Now, students, very important question. How was Gandhiji torn into two situations? So this is your answer. I'll tell you the explanation. See, now what is happening? Because of the chaos and the support of the peasants, the Gandhiji was able to handle them, because he knows that what the people of India wants. People of India are supporting Gandhi, and they can only be controlled by Gandhi's advice. Gandhi's voice only the peasants wanted to listen. Okay, so now the government got confused, and the prosecutor requested the judge, not today but tomorrow the trial should take place. Apparently means obviously, definitely, the authorities wish to consult their superiors, and then finally it was that they are supposed to talk to their superiors. What to do? Now Gandhiji is not happy with the delay. Meantime, what is going on? There is a delay because Gandhiji knows each and every rule. He read a statement and now he is feeling what? He is feeling guilty. He was involved, he told the court, in the conflict of duties. He is divided into two situations, and in both the situations he does not want to set a bad example. He says, I do not want to set a bad example as a lawbreaker. On one hand, not to set a bad example as a lawbreaker, that I disobey you, I'm not going to listen to you. So this is not what I want, says Gandhi. I'm not a lawbreaker. But on the other hand, I have to be of some use to my own nation and the people of my own country. If I disobey the officials of the British, I become a lawbreaker. But if I obey you, if I obey the British officials, what do? I do injustice with my own people. So these two situations are absolutely conflict. This is a conflict, and I don't want to be wrong in any of them. So that is why he was feeling guilty. Okay. He disregarded the order to leave. When he was asked to leave, so he did not listen, and on the envelope, on that official notice, he wrote, I disobeyed the order. So he says he disregarded the order to leave, not for want of respect for lawful authority, but in obedience to the higher law of our being, the voice of conscience. The voice of conscience, the voice of our inner soul. It says what is right. So what does that? My voice, my conscience said what? My conscience said not to leave my own people, whether I prove wrong in the eyes of law. Okay. So he asked the penalty due. Now he said, because I have disobeyed your rule, your order, I'm ready to pay the penalty. The magistrate announced that he would pronounce sentence after 2 hours recess, and asked Gandhi to furnish bail for those 120 minutes. Now 2 hours he's saying this is your time, you have to wait for some time, and meanwhile you are going to be imprisoned, and for your imprisonment you have to get the bail. On the basis of the bail only are we going to release you. We are going to release you after these 2 hours, and we want somebody to bail for you. Now Gandhiji refused here also. The judge released him without the bail. So now Gandhiji refused that nobody is going to come for my bail, and the judge released Gandhiji without bail. When the court reconvened, the judge said he would not deliver the judgment for several days. Meanwhile, he allowed Gandhi to remain at liberty. Now finally there was no trial, and it has to be postponed for some days, and Gandhiji was not in prison, he was free, he was at liberty. Let's move to the next page. Rajendra Prasad, Brij Kishore Babu, Maulana Mazharul Haq and several other prominent lawyers had arrived from Bihar. They conferred with Gandhi. What would they do if he was sentenced to prison, Gandhi asked. Why, the senior lawyer replied, they had come to advise and help him. If he went to jail, there would be nobody to advise and they would go home. Now Rajkumar Shukla was not alone. He was there with some strong, prominent lawyers from Bihar, and they have talked with Gandhi. They conferred with Gandhi. What would they do if he was sentenced to prison? Gandhi asked. Now Gandhi is prepared for every situation, and he wants his friends also to be prepared for all the worst situations coming. Now Gandhi is asking, if I'm imprisoned, what are you going to do? Why? The senior lawyer replied, they had come to advise and help him. Okay, now the senior lawyer is saying, we have come to help you and we have come to advise you. If you are going to go to the jail, then we have nobody to advise. So we'll go home. So we are not going to stay here if you are imprisoned. What about the injustice to the sharecroppers? Gandhi demanded. The lawyers withdrew to consult. Rajendra Prasad has recorded the upshot of their consultations. They thought amongst themselves that Gandhi was totally a stranger, and yet he was prepared to go to prison for the sake of the peasants. If they, on the other hand, being not only the residents of the adjoining districts, but also who claimed to be the servants of the country, who have served these peasants, should go home, it would be shameful desertion. Now, we have seen that the senior lawyer said that if you are going to be imprisoned, we are going to go back to our homes. But when later all the lawyers sat together and discussed, they have come to a conclusion that Gandhiji is a total stranger. He has come to India right now before some days, some years only, and we are living in our own country, and we are saying that we are going to go back to our homes, and we say that we are the people who represent the peasants in the courts. So if we are going to say no, then it will be a very shameful desertion. Desertion means to leave completely. To leave. Okay? Desertion means to leave. Alright. So, this is a shameful desertion, not only for us, but for the whole country, because we are the people who represent the peasants, and if we are going to say no, it will be a very shameful act. Then they accordingly went back to Gandhi and told him they were ready to follow him in jail. Now finally, positivity came into the minds of the lawyers, and they all agreed to help and support Gandhi even if Gandhiji was in the jail. And then Gandhiji said, the battle of Champaran is won. My dear students, this is a very important line. The battle of Champaran is won. Very important question comes for the detailed answer. Now see, the question is, the battle of Champaran is won. who spoke this line and why. So we have to explain everything from the time when Gandhiji has disobeyed the law, the order. He has written that I will disobey, and then from there he was torn into two situations, and then he called Rajendra Prasad, Brij Kishore Babu and other lawyers, and then when they finally, the lawyers initially were not ready to support, but later when they all thought that they are the people who support the peasants, represent the peasants, and if they are going to leave, it will be a shameful act. So listening to all this, Gandhiji said the battle of Champaran is won. Alright, so that will be your answer. Anyway, we are going to discuss that later too. Then he took a piece of paper and divided the group into pairs and put down the order in which each pair was to, quote, arrest. Now he started the planning of the future. Several days later, Gandhiji received a written communication from the magistrate informing him that the lieutenant governor of the province had ordered the case to be dropped. Civil disobedience triumphed the first time in modern India. Finally, the whole of the case was closed and civil disobedience movement for the first time won. Triumphed means won. W-O-N. Gandhi and the lawyers now proceeded to conduct a far-flung inquiry into the grievances of the farmers. Now finally what is happening? That Gandhiji has now started further detailed information gathering of the problems of the farmers. The depositions, about 10,000 peasants were written down and notes made on the evidence. Whatever the documents were, they were very much huge in number. And the documents were collected. The whole area throbbed with the activity of the investigations and vehement protests of the landlords. Vehement, big, huge. In June, Gandhi was summoned to Sir Edward Gates, the lieutenant governor. Before he met leading associates again, laid detailed plans for civil disobedience if he should not return. Now, before meeting this lieutenant governor, he has already made plans that if I do not return, what will be the future actions. Gandhi had 4 protracted interviews with Lieutenant Governor, who as a result appointed an official commission of inquiry into the Indigo sharecroppers. Situation. The commission consisted of the landlords, the government officials, and Gandhi as the sole representative of the peasants. Now once he has understood, the lieutenant governor has appointed an official commission. An official commission is a meeting, and there who all are going to be? The commission consisted of the landlords will be there, the government officials will be there, and there will be only one man representing the peasants, that is Gandhiji. Gandhi remained in Champaran for an initial uninterrupted period of 7 months, and then again for several shorter visits. 7 months struggle he has done without moving from there, and then after that he has come. In the middle of the trips he just kept on coming. Shorter visits were done. The visit undertaken casually on the entreaty of an unlettered peasant in the expectation that it would last a few days, occupied almost a year of Gandhi's life. This problem took complete 1 year of Gandhi's life to get completely over. The official inquiry assembled a crushing mountain of evidence against the big planters, and when they saw this, they agreed in principle to make refund to the peasants. When investigation was done in the detail till the roots, it was seen that the people of India, who were the farmers, the peasants, were excessively exploited, and finally refund of the peasants should be done. But how much must we pay? They asked Gandhi. How much of the amount has to be given back? The big planters are asking. They thought he would demand repayment in full of the money, which they had illegally and deceitfully extorted from the sharecroppers. Now, the planters are thinking he's going to ask the whole amount to be refunded. which they have taken, extorted, forcefully taken from the sharecroppers. He asked only 50%. There he seemed adamant. When he was saying this thing, he was adamant. Adamant means very, very arrogant, and he is not going to change his mind. Adamant. Arrogant and stubborn. He is not going to change his mind. So Gandhiji that time seemed to be very adamant and stubborn that he is not going to change. He is asking for 50%. Writes Reverend J. Z. Hodge, a British missionary in Champaran who observed the entire episode at close range. Now this was a man who was observing everything, and then maybe he has written later. So he wrote about Gandhiji, and he wrote about Gandhiji that he was adamant when he asked for the 50% of refund. Thinking probably that he would not give way, the representative of the planters offered to refund to only 25%. When Gandhiji asked for 50, the representatives of the planters were ready to give only 25. And to his amazement, Mr. Gandhi took him at his word, thus breaking the deadlock. Now whatever was given by them, Gandhiji immediately accepted. If they are ready to give 25, he said okay. He was not there getting angry or fighting there. This settlement was adopted unanimously by the commission, and finally it was accepted by the commission. Gandhi explained that the amount of refund was less important than the fact that the landlords had been obliged to surrender part of the money, and with it part of their prestige. Money at this point of time was not important. What was important is that they have surrendered their prestige. Okay, their prestige. Prestige is, we can say, the esteem, their pride. So that thing they have surrendered, and that is the actual win, or we can say the triumph, victory. Therefore, as far as the peasants were concerned, the planters had behaved as lords above the law. Before this, the landlords were thinking that whatever they are going to say will be the law. Now the peasant saw that he had rights and defenders. He learned courage. Now the peasant now understood that what is their power. If they are going to fight for their rights, they are definitely going to get their supporters, and a peasant from this learned a lesson of courage, that we have to be courageous. Events justified Gandhi's position. Within a few years, the British planters abandoned their estates, which reverted to the peasants. Now finally the planters completely left the fields. Indigo sharecropping disappeared. Gandhi never contented himself with large political or economic solutions. Now this solution and Gandhiji is at peace. No, he was moving further and further. He saw the cultural and social backwardness in the Champaran villages and wanted to do something about it immediately. He appealed for the teachers. Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh, two young men who had just joined Gandhi as disciples, and their wives volunteered for their work. Several more came from Bombay, Pune and other distant parts of the land. Devdas, Gandhi's youngest son, arrived from the ashram, and so did Mrs. Gandhi. Now these are all the volunteers who are coming to help, and they are improving the status of any place. So Devdas, Gandhi's youngest son, was also there from the ashram, and so was his wife. Primary schools were opened in 6 villages. Kasturbai taught the ashram rules on personal cleanliness and community sanitation. Health conditions were miserable. Gandhi got a doctor to volunteer his services for 6 months. 3 medicines were available: castor oil, quinine and sulfur ointment. Anybody who showed a coated tongue was given a dose of castor oil. Anybody with malaria received quinine plus castor oil. Anybody with skin eruptions received ointments plus castor oil. Gandhi noticed the filthy state of women's clothes. He asked Kasturbai to talk to them about it. One woman took Kasturbai into her hut and said, "Look, there is no box or cupboard for her clothes." The sari I am wearing is the only one I have. During this long stay in Champaran, Gandhi kept a long distance watch on the ashram. He sent regular instructions by mail and asked for financial accounts. Once he wrote to the residents that it was time to fill in the old latrine trenches and dig new ones, otherwise the old ones would begin to smell. So here we see the social status of the people of Champaran. The women are having no place to keep their clothes. Hygienic status is very low. There is no education, and plus there were no medical treatments. So here Gandhiji has arranged a doctor. Everybody was given castor oil, sulfur ointment, and also quinine. Gandhiji has seen, and then the problems are to be solved slowly and gradually. Okay, by the time Gandhiji was in Champaran, he kept a very strong look, notice, everything was under control in his what is going on in his ashram. Okay, that's how we complete the chapter, I guess. No. Okay, the Champaran episode was a turning point in Gandhi's life. What I did, he explained, was a very ordinary thing. What did he do? He just asked for his rights. He just stood up against what was done wrong. He just showed courage. So the turning point was in Champaran. Everybody, and especially the peasants, they have learned a lesson in courage. I declared that the British could not order me about in my own country. But Champaran did not begin as an act of defiance. It grew out of an attempt to alleviate the distress of large number of poor peasants. Yes. So Gandhiji was saying that he was not there to oppose or to fight. It was just a try. It was just an attempt so that I can remove the sadness from the hearts of the peasants. This was the typical Gandhi pattern. His politics were intertwined with the practical day-to-day problems of the millions. His was not a loyalty of abstractions, it was a loyalty to living human beings. Abstractions, something which cannot be seen, something which can only be felt. So he was not abstract. The problems were not abstract, but the problems was visible properly, and they were the problems which a man faces in his day-to-day life, very common problems which are very necessary for survival, for living. So those rights he was fighting for. Okay, in everything Gandhi did, moreover, he tried to mold a new India, free India, who could stand on his own feet and thus make India free. Early in the Champaran action, Charles Freer Andrews, the English pacifist, who had become a devoted follower of Mahatma, came to bid Gandhi farewell before going on a tour of duty to the Fiji Islands. Gandhi's lawyer friends thought it would be a good idea for Andrews to stay in Champaran and help them. Andrews was willing if Gandhi agreed, but Gandhi was vehemently opposed. He said, "You think that in this unequal fight it would be helpful if we have an Englishman on our side. This shows the weakness of your heart. The cause is just and you must rely upon yourself to win the battle. You should not seek a prop in Mr. Andrews because he happens to be an Englishman." He had read our minds correctly, Rajendra Prasad comments, and we had no reply. Gandhi in this way taught us a lesson of self-reliance. Self-reliance, Indian independence, and help to sharecroppers were of all together help. Now see, understand this. What was there? This man, Andrews, was ready to help, and he was also very much, we can say, impressed by the way Gandhiji worked. He was Charles Freer Andrews was the English pacifist. Pacifist is a person who believes in abolition of war. Okay, abolition of war. Pacifist who does not want any war or fights or quarrels. So he was a pacifist, and that is why he was very much impressed with Gandhi's deeds, his actions. Now Gandhiji and his lawyers, the friends, asked Gandhi to ask Andrew to stay here so that he helps Gandhi in all the other things. But now Gandhi's reply was, if we are going to have an Englishman on our side, it will show that we need an Englishman to get complete problem solved. The problem will be solved completely only if we are going to have an Englishman on our side. So this shows the weakness, and we should trust only ourselves. We should not get help from the people because we do not need it at all. We are self-sufficient, and that's how all the lawyers learned a lesson of self-reliance, and that helped India to completely get independence. And here, through the chapter Indigo, we'll see that the sharecroppers learned how to be self-reliant and to be self-sufficient. So I hope that the chapter and the important things are clear in our minds. Question and answers will be done, and this video has to be seen again and again if you have any problem. Okay, till then, stay home, stay safe.